Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment.
All right, you right, ballbags and gits. Open your ears and hear me later, because here's MGB Wrestling Podcast. Only the finest podcast that you're going to see, lads.
Have not one guest, but two guests. We have Duncan, McBain, and Hamish, Stuart, who together are the Grimy Scots. Thank you for joining us today, guys.
Our pleasure, lad.
You're welcome. You forgot Grizzly and for Duncan McBain. You're lucky he's on the bad end of a Skype call, or he'd grab you by the neck there, lad, and ring you around.
I just fight my own battles there, Hamish.
All right, lad. I'll let you go.
For people who don't know you, can you tell us about your wrestling style, your overall look, and your gimmick?
Why, of course, lad. Well, as you can see, I'm Hamish Stuart, the one-man Scottish bar fight. The man on the other side of the call with you is Grizzly Duncan
McBain, the wild man from the Highland.
And I would say our wrestling style is somewhere a mix between wild-eyed madman bar fighting and highbrow technical. I'd also say that we adapt to many styles and are probably the first and only Scottish luchadors.
Now, we did want to know, Duncan, how did you get the nickname Grizzly? And we want to know if Hamish has a nickname as well. Or certainly one that's for a PG podcast anyway. I don't know if you can mention other nicknames. Well, we'll have to see.
Well, despite my striking appearance here with all the hair, when I was a young lad, I used to scratch myself on the trees down in Edinburgh. And every time I'd run up against one, I'd knock it over. Then I'd toss it down the ledge. And then I'd be joining the caber toss and didn't even mean to. So there you go. Grizzly McBain.
And Hamish, do you have a nickname?
For a while, I went by the Punjabi Heartthrob, but that was a weird time of my life. It was just an odd time. No, I don't think I have a nickname that is really is really appropriate for anything. I mean, Twinkle Toes, Sweet Lips, Punjabi Heartthrob, all of those things work.
We saw a female cousin or sister of yours, and when we got a picture with you at EWA Maryland, there was a family picture too. So can you tell us about the clan?
Oh my God. Grizz, do you want to do it?
All right, you handle Claire, I'll handle Uncle Angus. So Uncle Angus, he's our uncle. You see, Hamish and I, we're cousins, right? So Uncle Angus comes up to us and says, "Oi, lads, I'd love to join you a little tag team." He comes and goes as he pleases, but he's there whenever we're in a row and need a little extra hand there. Good old Uncle Angus.
He's all right. He's probably the best talker of all of us, and we're all pretty good at it. But Claire McDonough. Is it? No, her last name's not McDonough. What did I do with myself?
You don't know her name.
No, I know Hamish Stewart. Look, I've 13 certifiable concussions. So let's look.
You get six for free. It's fine.
Right. So if I only have 7, that's the problem there. So right. So Claire, she is our cousin, and she's probably the roughest, toughest of us all. I wouldn't want to put her in a fight either. But so Claire pals around with us when she can. She uses her charm and her beauty as well as her wrestling skills. Now, to this day, we haven't seen Claire in a wrestling ring, and out and about at Flying V or any of the other promotions that we work at. And I'll tell you this right now: if she were to step in the ring today, within 6 months, she would be the top female wrestler in all of this region. She's got the looks, she's got the ability, and she's got the people behind her to work. She just needs to get in the ring. But she's one of our family members, and we love her dearly. And
one of the many cousins we have.
We probably tease her more than we should, and we probably tease her harder than any other male person we'll run around with.
How did you get kicked out of Scotland?
But before you answer that question, I thought it was you were banned from England. So is it one or is it both?
That's correct. We are Scotland's favourite sons. Don't you forget that.
That's right.
So how did you get kicked out then?
Ah.
What caused that is what we want to know.
Well, so I mean, there's a pending investigation, so we really can't go into it in depth.
Really, hush, hush.
We understand the legal side, sure.
Right. Let's just say it happens to deal with the Queen, a pair of knickers, and 2 fetching Scotsmen running from the guard. But let's just say that.
Can you play the bagpipes?
Of course I can, lad. Can you?
No.
What's wrong with you? Why can't you play the bagpipes? What were you
Unless
brought
you
up
put a
with?
Scotsman.
Oh, we brought on a recorder. Would you play a recorder?
I did in 4th grade.
You play something else, huh?
I play the violin.
You can play the bagpipes. They're the same.
All right, I want to know, because we always like to ask food questions as well. Have you guys tried Iron Brew?
God bless you.
I'm going to take that as a no. That wow, Iron Brew. I remember that from when I was in England. It was labelled as a traditional Scottish drink. Now, of course, that could just have been for advertising purposes. So perhaps we just got it wrong.
That horrible orange cola.
It's very difficult to describe, actually. I don't think it's orange particularly. It's definitely got a fruity taste to it, but so it sounds like possibly.
He likes fruity drinks.
We're just trying to come up with all the Scottish things we can. I promise you, we're nearly finished with the Scottish section. We got 2 more questions.
Fine, I love to talk about it. It's a dear time in my life. No,
we need the origin story though. The origin story is really important though. So.
Are you
the
really
origin
Scottish?
story.
If not, how do you do the accent all the time?
All right, start that question again.
Yeah, go start again. No, I do it right this time. No, go ahead, line. That's the time.
Are you really Scottish?
Now I see why when you have one guest on at a time.
Are you really Scottish? If not, how do you do the accent all the time?
I mean, are you really from England and America? And how do you do your accent all the time? You just talk, right, man?
Just a smart guy.
Yeah, right. How'd that happen? He's just from there. That's what is the problem. I, of course, was from Scotland. That's where we come from, and that's where we live, right? And we learn this accent just growing up around it. You just like, do you ask the fish how did it learn to swim? No, it just grew up in the water.
Now, we got one last question for you. We ask Jackson, our 6-year-old, like, we always tell him who we're going to interview, and we always say, do you have any questions? They can be very random questions. This is probably the most appropriate question he's ever asked, actually. And I said, actually, we already had this as a question. So I was like, I'll ask it on your behalf anyway. What are your favorite Scottish words?
I got a few of these.
Right.
You bum out the windy. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
What's the one I always call it at you, Hamish? Now I'm blanking because I haven't been to the ring in so long.
My favorite to yell at people is ball bag.
That's a great one.
You get where that's coming from and where it goes.
I don't. Is that uniquely Scottish?
You know, it's funny. They sell knickers, men's knickers, underwear, that say ball bag across it. It's a ball bag brand. It's probably the finest thing in the world. We were gonna put them on our kilt one time, and then all this nonsense happened, so we couldn't get. But you could buy them in the UK, I suppose. I mean, I buy them online. They come over, but it's just ball bag brand, boxer shorts or whatever, briefs or something. But hey, they're fantastic. That's my favorite of the Scottish slang to say. That or steamer.
Do you ken that one, Jack Mason? Do you ken is do you know? That's my contribution to the Scottish conversation. Now, as it's a PG podcast, the one question we are going to avoid is what do you have underneath your sporrans? So let's move straight on to the wrestling questions.
Okay, moving on to wrestling. The earliest match of yours we can find is from April 2017 when you faced the New Settlers, Angus, John West, and RJR, an NWL event in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Was this your debut, and what memories do you have from your debut?
No, that was not our debut.
That was the one that was listed on Cage Match, but we know that they don't always have everything.
That's the one that they claimed. No. Our first one was at the House of Pain in Hagerstown, Maryland. We fought against the new Cobra Kai for the House of Pain championship. We won that championship, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we did. Right?
On your debut?
Yes.
Yeah, right? It was crazy.
That was our debut match. That was our debut match as the Grimy Scots.
Right, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We were working up the tag team for quite a while. And then we're then like, hey, here it is. You're going to do this. We're going to sort of launch this thing. And then, we weren't supposed to go over. And then the night of, they were like, just like a night of switch. They were like, hey, man, you're going over. And we had to rethink the whole finish.
Wow. That's incredible. I don't think I've ever heard of winning a championship on like your first match. Actually, I think Timothy Hatchett did that on NXT recently, but that's that's pretty incredible.
I mean, we are compared with Timothy Hatcher a lot. I mean, I would.
Can you tell us a little bit about your singles career then? We didn't actually even think of asking that, to be honest.
I started in 2007 as Giuseppe, the Paisan of Pain, was my first gimmick. I did that also at the House of Pain back in 2007. Stuck with that for a while before taking a long break from pro wrestling until I came back with Hamish here and tried to make it as Grizzly Joe. I was going to be Grizzly Joe.
Oh, as a part, you're going to tell me who your tag partner was supposed to be.
My
tag name
was going to be Big Bear Roy Gillette, and we were going to be Wild America, and it was going to be great.
I still love that gimmick. It
would have been amazing.
So why Grimy Scots then?
Well, then along came Hamish, and I told him, because he couldn't think of a gimmick. I said, hey, you've been wearing a kilt in your Renaissance Festival career for 20 years now. Why don't you just wrestle that? And he said, oh, I don't know. I said, just do it. He did that, and I said, hey, let's be a tag team. And he said, you need to wear a kilt too then.
Yeah, you definitely need to do that. And it's, his other tag team partner, who was Ryan Milner, who was excellent. Just, the rigors of the professional wrestling training, just getting there, like any gym, is very difficult. But it is exceedingly difficult in the professional wrestling world because you've mixed athletics and competition with performance. And if you have performance people, they are normally not sort of I need to get into competition and athletics. A lot of that doesn't intersect. So you get a lot of attrition out of it because of that. And Ryan wasn't getting his fill out of it, wasn't having, I think, enough fun. And if you're not having fun, then stop. And he just he bowed out. And good for him that he found out instead of suffering through an injury or going into something and hating it and then working his way through. But yeah, Grizz gave me that suggestion, and he's not wrong. That it has served us very well and served me very well, and it's a character that I've known for a very long time. I have never really kind of had a singles career or a singles run of matches, of all things.
Fair enough.
And of all of that, I actually enjoy singles wrestling when I train. I very much like it.
Uh-huh. Now, the first time we actually saw you was in 2018. It was the Nova Pro tryout show, Sink or Swim. What do you remember about that match?
Well, that match.
Oh, God. Was that the first? That was the first one,
Yeah.
right?
So that was the three-way tag match.
I know there was one.
I know it was Gingerverse.
Yeah, Gingerverse, and then the one guy's from Tennessee, right?
Right, the twin brothers.
That's it. The Cross Brothers.
We had a brilliant little match planned out there. And
Absolutely.
just something went awry with the timing. And we're about maybe a third of the way through the match. And we're getting the go-home signal. And we're panicking. So that whole match just goes out the window.
Yeah, it went sideways real quick. So, like, to not, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people pull back the curtain a lot on your podcast, but to pull it back way far, the setup for Nova Pro, like, they just opened it up for this open tryout, and everyone who's ever wrestled or bought a pair of boots were like, I'm in.
Yeah.
So we were so late on the card that they were like, in the beginning of the thing, they were like, okay, singles matches, you get 6 minutes. Tags, you get 8. And if you got a gimmicky tag, or if we were doing more than that, you're getting 10 to 12. So we were like, 10 to 12? Hell yeah. And then we put this great match together. We were so late in the card that they were up against the gun to open the door for their regular show. So that they had like the opening matches, the singles matches were going 15, 16 minutes. And we were like, and the fans were enjoying it, but which was then cutting into everybody later in the card. So we get to our match, and they're like, all right. And we're like, we're still operating in the 10 to 12 time frame. And I guarantee you, we got it like the 6-minute mark, and they were like, wrap it up, take it home. And we were barely through the heat portion of it, where we were supposed to heat up both of the teams, and it just went like, boom, take her home. And we had to blow up, I mean, probably a good 40% of that match, maybe 50.
Yeah, I actually rewatched that match recently, so it's not, like I say, that's not something where, I know sometimes you pick up on that, Mason, like, hey, the ref just said we're near the finish. I didn't pick up on that at all. We talked to Cabana Man Dan last month, and he said on his debut, there was a tryout show the year before, his match was called in like 2 minutes, so there's some really strange things going, and he was upset. He drove 12 hours to get to that as well, and he only had a 2-minute match.
Did that? Seriously, we're sitting there with it, and like the people from Gingerverse, they were like, "Hey, man, we came from, I think it was like Kansas or something. It was somewhere like, it was way far. They were in the same boat. They were like, we drove out. It was like 12 hours or something to get out here. I was like, whoa, for a free show to come out here for 12 hours.
Yeah, right.
So you guys have caught me at the right time, because this COVID thing, and then kind of like, where we are at in our lives, like I'm kind of starting to care less about what other wrestlers think about me. But get ready for Hamish Stuart shoot show here. But we get to the back, and the Gingerverse is like, "What's wrong with you guys? You were taking way too long in that heat, and you were doing this." And I was like, and like we were being very good. But like from now on, I'm telling you right now, man.
No, realistically, they spent a good, like, more than half of the time freaking chaining in the beginning, chain wrestling, when that really should have been a little 2-second spot.
Chaining and preening is really, and they were doing a lot of good character work. Great for tag team match. But then when the ref said go home, and we were probably a minute and a half into our heat, they were like, "Man, your heat took way too long." I should have just grabbed him up and been like, "Listen, bro, when you two guys were pulling off your jackets and sort of flexing with your gingerness, like, do you remember?" Or maybe it wasn't the ginger dudes, maybe it was the other. I don't know. Like, I get hit in the head a lot.
At least Barry.
Whoever you two were doing that kind of stuff. Do you think that was eating into this time? Like, they weren't being good partners either with that. But it works out. Those things.
Whatever.
Well, one of the things, though, I noticed, and we obviously noticed at the time, though, you managed to get your gimmick over when you weren't in the ring, though. Like, you were interacting with the people. Your corner was right next to where we were sat. So you were interacting with people in the crowd, even if you weren't in the match. So even when you weren't part of the action, you were still part of the action, because people were actually paying attention to you. So I guess that's another way that you can get that gimmick over a little bit as well.
And real quick, to just tag on there, and that's the beauty of pro wrestling and being a performer in it. It's the service to the entire scene that you've put on in the ring. So you don't have to, like, and we try to tell students and other people who we mentor, like, it's not the bumps and it's not the moves you do. It's how you connect with the audience and how you get that emotion back out through them and with them. So, so Joe, I would tell you 100%, Joe is probably the best out of any wrestler that's ever done this, is just connecting with the audience and maximizing all the time he does out there to make it all worthwhile. And when we're not in there, we're gonna do our best to make sure that we're relevant and that the audience sees who we are and we get our part over.
Where did you get the big stick from? Does it always fall on the edge of the ring as much as that match?
Fall off the edge of the ring.
Right, that happened a lot in that match. That was gifted to me by our first manager. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. I'm the worst human being alive. His father made that when he was young and gave it to him. And once he heard about our gimmicks, he said, "I have just the thing for you." He showed up one day and he handed it to me. That's it. He just said, "Here it is. This is from an oak tree. My father made this." And I said, "You're just giving it to me?" He said, "Yeah, it's yours. I got no use for it, and you can use this." So it's now permanently going to hang over my mantle and be always part of my gimmick. But no, after that match specifically, I learned to put it in better places.
It was kind of funny, though, because it kept rolling over to that one person and then it fell off again. And it actually worked perfectly. Now, on commentary, you were actually picked to win that. It was Andrew Ace Gordon, who I didn't actually recognize, Mason. I don't think I recognized him on commentary from Nova Pro at all. Hamish, as you entered the ring, you were actually introduced as #Hamish Stewart. But then the
Yeah.
commentator corrected, saying it's just Hamish Stuart now, as he was trending all the time anyway. Now, I didn't get that reference. Was that from a different organization?
No, you know what? So when I first started, when I was singling, I was hashtag Hamish because I have a shirt that says hashtag Hamish on it. And
Okay.
from a thing that I had done from a long time ago, we ran this silly contest with other people where we wore these shirts and tried to get them to tag them as much as possible and then look it up and see who got the most hashtags out of it. But that was the idea, was I was going to be hashtag Hamish. And then play that character as sort of a haughty, like, you know, pretty boy kind of character. But it just never took off and didn't work out for myself or the character.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we don't normally, I would say, being at the events, we don't normally go back and watch them. So it was interesting, like a year, 2 years later, going back, just to listen to what some of the commentators had to say to give some extra information. Now, after that match, it was
funny about that match when you said we were booked to win that match, as they had said, like that was news to us when we came back from that match. It wasn't like we walked back in and they were like, "What happened? You're supposed to win." And we were like, "Well, what happened? Nobody told us."
Yeah, nobody told us a thing.
Well, if it's any consolation, because I don't know if you remember, you didn't actually get pinned, so you weren't part of the decision, actually. It was I think it was the Cross Brothers that actually pinned Gingerverse, if I remember correctly.
So we still won. So we still won. I consider that a win. I'm going to put that, you know, if Cage Match hasn't said it was a loss, I'm going to email him.
Let's get a little asterisk next to it. Now, we didn't see you for that after. It was nearly a year until we saw you next. It was Rage in the Cage 2019, EWA Maryland, and you faced the War Pigs. And actually, it was on Mason's birthday. We were trying to find somewhere because Nova Pros actually closed in January. So I saw this one. Every match is in a cage. I was like, let me guess. Would you like to go there for your birthday? Of course he did. Go on, Mason. Next question.
What's it like to wrestle in cage matches?
Okay, fun thing about that show. So first off, a cage match is a great gimmick match. But when you have every match in there, we decided, all right, we're going to set ourselves apart. And we're not going to use the cage. Every other match was certainly going to use that cage. We decided we're going to have a cage match and not touch the cage.
Yeah, we made that decision very early on. We were like, and it wasn't because we were afraid of the cage or didn't want to interact with it. We were like, that thing's going to be so over and done by the time we're done with this thing. Everybody's going to be so tired of those spots. We were like, we're done with that. Let's figure out neat and interesting things to do without the cage.
Right.
I think you've got to break matches up. I don't know how many matches there was that night. It was probably like 12. So, yeah, it probably makes sense to do something slightly different. The thing that probably shocked us the most for that was that you were faces at this one, because you were kind of more heel characters when we saw you at Nova Pro. I think you must have high-fived everybody in the whole crowd. You must have ran around every single row. It was one of the more energetic entrances that we've seen for sure.
That's one of the few places where we were faces, for sure. I don't know whose decision it was. I just sort of ended up that way.
You know, I think it came out, I think that was a natural progression because Rage in the Cage wasn't our first match there.
No, it wasn't.
WA. So we had been doing a few things and we had been sort of teetering the line of face and heel. And then somebody was like, I forget who it was. They were like, hey man, let's just rock this. Let's just go 100% face and let's do it. And you know, we were like, all right, let's play that. You know, we're normally heel a lot of the time. So we were like, let's see what these characters look like as faces. And we just, you know, and it's a fun, different side of those characters. Like, and we get to use some more fun moveset that we have. We are both, Joe and I are both, we probably, like every wrestler, we probably use about 10% of our moveset in every match. And like, and without, other than our signature stuff that we like to kind of shoehorn in as much as possible, like there's a ton of stuff that we can do that we're always like, man, this just ain't going to work here. And going face, I think freshened it up a bit for us to give us a chance to have some fun, you know, and being heels, we know like the spots where it's fun to kind of make fun, kind of press, and then kind of interject the humor where it's needed. And I think that helped out a lot.
Now, actually, the next question, I didn't actually know this at all about you guys. I don't follow Chikara as closely as I should do. And probably the same thing. It looks like, from my perception of it, from what I've seen so far, it's very similar to kind of very character-driven. So can you tell us about that debut? Because that's also within the last year as well.
You could say they're character-driven. and that would be an understatement.
yes. Well, you faced Green Ant and Thief Ant for starters, so yes.
A living comic book is the best way to describe Chikara.
Yeah, you hit that right on the head.
That is a wonderful company that we're very close to. Chikara is run like a theater on steroids. Like, it's so planned and so precise. I was quite amazed by their process getting together, but the people there are so much fun to work with, and they put on such a adrenaline-packed show. It's almost hard to keep up sometimes when they get rolling. It's just a runaway train, lucha action.
I think also the neat part of it is that there's so many layers. The company is storied and has, I mean, it's probably, I think it's over 20 years of history. It's just at its 20-year mark. So like, there's so many layers to the Chikara brand that they can reach back and they can go through. And the person who helms it, Mike Quackenbush, is probably one of the foremost wrestling historians on the East Coast. Not only is he a fantastic wrestler and an amazing technician as well, but so his knowledge of wrestling and his ability to build stories out of some of the most neatest and most untread parts of wrestling is very neat to see. And the characters are so very unique that you can't go in there and you're not going to go into their show and go, oh man, I saw a generic black trunks dude wrestle generic guy in tight screamy guy. You're never going to see that in that show. They put together very tight, very neat shows, and they're very fun. I think the main difference between both of those is that Chikara has been around for 20 years, and they have that history and that story that they can build upon. And some of the people that have come out of Chikara are just world-class people. Cesaro came out of Chikara. Drew Gulak is out of Chikara. I mean, there are a tremendous amount of people. What is it? Was it Orange Cassidy wrestled there for a while? I mean, just some of the neatest and most interesting people to push the boundaries of what wrestling is in Chikara.
And that just reminded me, that was something on my to-do list and I never did. I did mean to go, I love Orange Cassidy. I love that gimmick. That was something I'd heard he was at Chikara. I meant to go back and look and I never did. Now, I'm noticing a theme here. I didn't know, obviously this didn't come up before. So on your debut, you won. Nova Pro debut, you were supposed to win, but you got cheated out of it. And your Chikara debut as well that you won. That's, having said, you don't normally see wins on debut. That's pretty impressive.
At that event, we saw your Scottish belts. Have you been challenged for these, and will you defend them in the future?
So here's the thing with our Scottish belts. So that's the Highland Championship. It can only be defended on Highland land. Unfortunately, we're banned in the UK. So it's unfortunate.
Champions for life. Champions for life, lad. Stipulation number one. But I'll tell you this right now. I'll put that belt up against anyone out there. You want to take it?
What?
That right now. Back to Orange Cassidy for one brief moment, because I have to tell you this. I will say this even to this day. And if an Orange Cassidy match comes on, for the first 3 minutes, I hate every second of that match. I will let you know. There is something about Orange Cassidy that the first 3 minutes, I'm like, I hate this guy.
Are we talking about the entrance, or are we talking about like the pretend it's the little kid?
Bell rings. We start wrestling, and I go, God, I hate this. I can't believe this is going on. And then by about minute 5, I don't know what happens. I am now in the moment and love every minute of this character. At the end of his match, I'm the biggest Orange Cassidy mark that ever walked the planet. That is the roller coaster that you ride with me if an Orange Cassidy match comes on. We start going, I go, God, and I use much stronger language. I swear this sucks. I can't believe this. This is what's happening. And then I'm yelling like, yeah, hashtag this is wrestling, whatever, And then by about minute 3, and he starts doing those weird, like, easy chops, and then that little
kicks,
spin music. Oh my God, I'm done. At that point, I'm like, all right, this guy cracked the code. He wins.
I had to argue with somebody recently because they said they hated him, and I was like, okay, I understand if you don't like his gimmick, but they said he wasn't a talented wrestler, and I was like, I'm gonna have to take umbrage at that one. If you can do all those moves with your hands in your pockets, I don't know how he can do that stuff. It's incredible.
I forget which match it is. There's a match, and it's several matches that he does, but I have to pull it up and find it for you. Maybe I think he was wrestling Joey Ryan, maybe. I don't know. That was the match where he just left it all out on the table there. And I was like, and there are several matches you could pull from that you're just like, you're like, all right, well, okay. This guy's got, and the funny part is, and the Jim Cornettes of the world, I just can't get it. They can't get it. That to be that good, to act like you don't care, but be able to pull those things off that he does in the ring, that takes talent, and that takes an extreme amount that the Jim Cornettes and the naysayers of the world that are like, whoa, wrestling is this. Like, okay, great. Yeah, there's been an undead guy shooting lightnings from his hands winning WrestleMania for 20 years in a row, and this is the thing that's taken you out of it, right? The thing is the guy with the hand in his pants. The guy who's an undead dude who comes out of the dirt. We buy that. Anyway.
From that event, my dad bought a Renaissance Rumble DVD from you, having seen it online, but not knowing you were in it. For people unfamiliar with this project, can you tell us about this?
Renaissance Rumble, Shakespeare in the Squared Circle, is a show that we helped create with 3 other fine gentlemen and 1 awesome lady. Several awesome ladies. I won't get into all that.
Right. But it's a mix of Shakespeare and pro wrestling, which I think is a match made in heaven. We didn't know that this Venn diagram was going to come together so smoothly. The theatricality of it, the overtop theatricality of it, lends itself so easily to playing Shakespeare way out of control, and then actually being able to play Shakespeare in a ring. It lends itself to the real nature of it. Joe, I'm dying on this, so please jump in.
It's Shakespeare with less exposition and more headlocking, body slamming violence. We take 6 scenes from Shakespeare. The whole show is that. Really, it's 2 different shows combined that we did at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. But then we combined them all at this show at the Wrestle Factory. 6 different scenes of Shakespearean violence that we put a wrestling edge to. A sort of anthology of these things. It's our own commentary on it. It's a goofy show. It's a fun show. DVDs are still available and probably will be for some time. So please get those DVDs.
To kind of go deeper into and this is where I was kind of losing my track, but then I'll bring it back here. Shakespeare was written for the masses, and it wasn't this highbrow sort of humor. It certainly has a lot of highbrow stuff in it now because we can't understand the language. I bet 500 years from now, when somebody reads a play of ours that uses a bunch of slang or slang words that people make up, it's gonna take a scholar to be able to figure it out, and people who study theater. But it's written for the masses, and if played right, everybody should be able to understand it. And nothing lends itself more generously to unspoken communication than mime and pro wrestling. So and because we're not mimes, we decided to pro wrestle. So in that, you really gather a lot of it, and we get a lot of, after every one of those shows that we've done, inevitably there's an English teacher or a Shakespeare professor comes up and they go, oh man, I try to explain to my students, this is what Shakespeare's like, this is what you're supposed to get from this, and we can't get it out of just the text. And you have to see Shakespeare. You shouldn't be reading plays anyway. You have to see it. And then 2, the action in there is built off of the actual drama that's written in the plays. It's a match made in heaven. And the fact that we were able to run it for 5 years and have a lot of fun with it and build spin-offs and fun stuff with it is amazing. And it's been a lot of fun.
We were supposed to attend that event. I remember posting on Facebook, I'm going to tell the wife that I'm taking the boys to go watch some Shakespeare. and then posting the picture. And also the other tagline as well was "No holds barred," BARD as well. There was just like so many cool things. Like it caught my attention straight away. I don't remember the exact reason, but I think it was you had a baseball game on. We didn't always know the times of his games. And traveling up to Philadelphia, I was like, yeah, we could make it. So yeah, when I saw that, I saw the DVD online. I saw it on Twitter somewhere, and then I saw it on your merch table. I just thought you were selling it. I had no idea you were actually in it at the time. So I watched it, and then before we did the interview, I said, hey, do you want to watch it as well? And he said, yeah. You loved it. You thought it was great.
I'll let you know if you had a full another hour, we could do a deep dive on Renaissance Rumble and tell you the trials and tribulations of building that show.
Oh, he's got a few more questions that are going to delve into that. If you want to wait for a second, but he's like I said, this made a big impact on him. He said, I loved it. And I was like, I told you. I was like, it was great. Our 6-year-old who has a low attention span, he loved it as well. He sat the whole time and watched it. So yeah, go on, Mason. Dive into some more of those questions, and then we can get back to Hamish with some more stuff later.
How long did it take to remember the lines?
I'm still working on it, lad.
So there's a big improv side to it then, is that right?
There shouldn't be, no.
I kind of didn't have a choice there.
So as actual actor Joe Grasso will tell you, the rest of us schlubs, in no way have we been able to live up to the acting portion of it. And I will say myself highly included in that. And there's just lines that I'm not going to remember. I just know I'm not going to. And there was much more text written in show 2 that I was supposed to remember that we just went, let's just cut it. Mike's not going to remember that. And sadly, we did. So we fill with some of the banter between us and some of the character work, but to date, I could not go through the Romeo part and get it word for word. I could not go through the last play, whatever one that one is, where I was either Demetrius or Lysander. I could not get that one, the bit on the end there, right at all. I don't. And look, man, I don't know. I wish I could. And that's why I'm a wrestler, not an actual actor.
Yeah. What was the hardest segment to prepare and perform?
That's a good question. The hardest part, certainly the lucha match, the opening brawl from Romeo and Juliet, because there's so many moving parts in that. To get that working crisply, as much crisply as we could, and keeping the comedy alive and the athleticism, I'm using air quotes here, in that match, just right, probably took us the longest. I mean, certainly there's some lines back and forth that took us a while to work out correctly, but I'd say most of us there were pretty on top of our game with the improv and with the quick banter, and that can always be worked out as you're performing. That one is so specific physically that we had to get it exactly right, especially like the crisscross rope running. We had to time that exactly right. And anything with physical comedy, it has to be exactly right or it's not funny. As you can, I mean, if you've seen our show over the years, if you ever saw any of the shows of it, there are times when it just fell flat because we didn't have it crisp. But luckily in that performance, I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I would think that, like, it really depends on day to day what the hardest part is. Like, because every time we perform the show, the people are just different. Humans are just different. The audience is just different. I think we always think where things are going to land great, but they just don't. And then you start overcompensating, and then you're not doing well. And then all of a sudden you botch a move, or you do something that's not right, or take a bump the wrong way. And then the whole thing goes south. I agree. I think the physicality of the lucha match was one of the toughest. I think also, even in general, there's still some spots in there that we haven't really hammered out what that big punchline is. And I think that's, to be honest, that's the hardest part for me, because there in that show are just some brilliant comedic minds. And the fact that we can't find where that kernel is on that to really hit the character, hit the text, and then actually make the crowd get into it. That's the thing that drives me wild every time. And that's kind of the thing just with creating your own theater, creating your own show, is that art is never perfect, and if you're never going to get it right. So that's what's going to drive you nuts. That drives me crazy.
It's very similar to stand-up comedy. We had it in front of a crowd so many times, just hammering what works, what doesn't work. It's the same thing with a wrestling act. In a pro wrestling show, what moves work, what moves get the crowd going, and paying attention to that. It's a living, breathing thing. And even up until the last time we did it, it was still being tweaked and moved around. Punchlines moved here and there.
Yeah, an extra beat put here, a second put there. Hey, maybe let's not do that this way. And it's, it's always a work in progress. So you never have it just set and done and then walk away from it. And that, I think that's the hardest part, is like, it is always hitting that mark and going, God, here comes that one joke that we just haven't figured out, and everybody's gonna stare at me. Not gonna be fun. Yeah, that's tough. And also when you change something and it doesn't land as much as you want to. At one of our shows we did it at college, I changed one of the lines and yelled at it. It sounded like an elderly man trying to be hip, and I was like, oh, this is my world.
No, I don't know if it links in with. I've listened to a few comedians talk about their art as well, and it sounds like from when they talk about it as well, they can have like that improvement there. But part of it depends on the crowd. You can make a change, and it can be a good change, but sometimes the crowd just doesn't appreciate necessarily the art. So I'm sure that's kind of a difficult one as well. Sometimes you could be getting positive feedback, but it might not necessarily be a good change. And possibly vice versa. You might get no feedback, but actually it might be technically an improvement. So I guess the audience is a big factor on that too.
When we're training new wrestlers or we're training performers in any way, we always say that audience, they're a living, breathing thing. They're the extra performer in the room. And you have to acknowledge them, work them in. And if you're not, what are you doing live performance for? You're doing it for the cameras. Maybe that's why we do so well when we're put in positions, why we're the ones the crowd jumps on the most, is because we acknowledge them and we talk to them. It's the same thing with Shakespearean performance. If you're not directly addressing the crowd in Shakespeare, you're not doing Shakespeare correctly.
Perhaps what I was trying to say, and not saying it very elegantly, was comedians obviously do their same act like on multiple nights. Sometimes it'll get a big reaction, and on other nights it'll get no reaction at all. So if you only based it on the night where you get no reaction, you might think it's a bad piece, when actually that's possibly not true. It could just be the crowd.
And the funny part about like doing live theater and doing anything like that is that sometimes people might just be quiet. Sometimes they silently enjoy things. Yeah. And they're just not sitting there and going and just being very vocal about things. And you can finish that show and you can just be like, God, that show sucked so hard. And then a majority of the crowd could come up to you and be like, hey man, that was great. And then you're not believing it because you're like, well, tell your face that you liked it. All right. How about showing us with some applause or something? And that's a hard bit too, is just knowing that like, hey man, people still like it and people are going to like it. So you're just going to have to power through that and just learn to live with that feeling.
What was your favorite segment in your event?
My favorite, huh? I mean, I'm certainly partial to the Macbeth-Macduff fight.
I really like that too. I really, really like that as well. It has to me, it's the perfect mix of, who these characters are, both in the wrestling and in the Shakespeare. You know exactly who we're parodying for those things. You know what we're doing. And also, like, it hit all those tropes that those characters did to a T. That I think we let off with the strongest thing on that show and really just brought the audience in. They went, okay, well, this is what this is going to be. And at that moment they went, all right, well, I'm either in or I'm out. So I think I'm in.
With appearing in every match, what were the biggest challenges in that?
Breathing.
Cardio.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
I would also thought as well, the changing as well is because you all had different costumes on as well.
Oh yeah.
We have a stage manager in the back that helps dressing sometimes, but that's only for a couple of scenes where it's a quick change. Other than that, we're on our own with the quick changes. That was a challenge for some of the scenes, yeah.
Right, and we built out some of the text was built out to accommodate those things, and some of the action is built out to accommodate more changes and to heighten the sort of the comedy on those things and heighten the skill on that. when we had done the show up at the Wrestle Factory, one of the guys came up to us and was like, "Hey, man, you wrestled 6 matches in a row." And to me, they weren't, they're not matches, they're scenes, because we had done the show back to back, like with maybe a 10-minute intermission. And it didn't really dawn on me until I was like, yeah, wow, we did just do probably 50 minutes of solid wrestling in there. Now, the second show is kind of more text than wrestling, and I would have loved to have more wrestling than text, but due to some regulatory bodies, we had to definitely tone it down.
Well, that's the thing we've talked about before when people have done double duty. We've said how impressive that's it. And when Brocella won his title, he had 3 matches because it was a tournament. But yeah, you had 6 matches. And like you said, the cardio side, if you've got to deliver lines as well and you're trying to catch your breath, I thought that was very impressive. There was no evidence of that it was tiring. You could hear all the lines clearly. We thought that was really good. Now, one of the bonus features on the DVD, I think, was about pirates. We didn't actually go back and watch it this time. I saw it come up. So the question was going to be, has there been any previous projects, and is there any plans for something similar in the future?
So that, what do we call that? There was the
Pirates Brawl.
Back in 2014, 2013, one of those two. I go to Mike at a late night Taco Bell event. I say to him after a rehearsal,
it wasn't like a wrestling show. It was just us at a Taco Bell.
It was after a rehearsal of the Renaissance Festival. I say to him, listen, we both have training. We both miss wrestling. What if we wrote a show? What if we wrote a show? Put a show with some wrestling in it. He said, you know what? You write a show, get it together, and I'll help fund it. And one thing led to another. There's a lot of steps in between that and when we actually got it going. But what came out of that was the Pirates Brawl. I wanted to do something Renaissance-y. So I said, well, what's more Renaissance-y than Pirates, the Renaissance Festival? Everybody loves pirates. So I said, all right, it's going to be Pirates versus Royal Navy, and that'll be a weird thing. And that's the show that came out of that. It's not amazing, but it's got a special place in my heart.
I think if we had appropriate time to really mount it, it could really be something special. It was also just kind of a proof of concept show that, hey, we could actually do this and make it entertaining, that didn't have just wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. I'm Crush the Annihilator, and I'm Finn Skin the Luscious, and now we're gonna wrestle. It was something that was proving that it could be done. And the fact that we then were given a little bit more leeway to kind of run with the ball on a few things. So it was a lot of fun, and I agree. It holds a special place in my heart as well because of what it achieved. The theatrical piece of crap, though. But other than that.
Yeah.
Well, the last part of the question as well. Any plans for the future? Any similar events that you guys are working on at all, or is that going to be the last show?
So as with everything, there's always things that come up and there's always opportunities that arise. I wouldn't say that's going to be, that nothing is ever dead. I mean, Hogan has wrestled with the WWE. Everybody's come back from the dead. Everybody's wrestling here except for CM Punk for some reason. But I wouldn't say this is the end. I think there is merit to wrestling being a part of theater and theater being a part of wrestling. So I don't think Joe or I will ever be out of that entirely. I think if there's a space and a time and an ability, I think our talents we always enjoy it, and it doesn't feel like work at all to mount something like that. And we very much like and appreciate that work. I do think down the road for outside of the theatrical arena that there are things that we are also kind of going through and putting our energies into. And if this COVID thing hadn't happened, we were certainly, had in the books to do some more of this stuff, but, we got to take care of ourselves and our families. So,
of course.
If you could tag with anyone other than each other, who would you choose?
Marvelous Mike Martin. No.
Big Bear, Roy Gillette. I want Wild America to come back. God dang it.
If I could tag with one other person, I don't know if I'd want to tag with this person because I'd like to watch him wrestle, but maybe because I think it would be maybe a nice clash of style. But God, and now I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Joe, you think he wrestles like a noodle, but
Oh, him.
he's only the greatest trained and technical wrestler in the world.
Shoot, what's his name? He's a Brit.
Oh, jeez.
What is it? Zack Sabre Jr.
Oh, him.
That's what.
I thought that was Walk with Elias for a minute. I was like, okay.
Elias. No, they chant his name to that Seven Nation, Zack Sabre Jr. That's whatever. I'm a huge mark, clearly huge mark for Zack Sabre Jr. So yeah, I think that would be a fun tag because I think he's just fun to watch. And then, gosh, there's that guy in New Japan who is. Oh man, he wears a jacket and looks like Marty McFly. It's great. This guy's fantastic. I can't. God, I'll have to look him up to see how far I've been out of the game. But I think those are the two. If I had to choose somebody that would be forced to tag with me, they're certainly not. They're certainly not banging my door down now, asking me to tag.
No.
Either that or the APA. Late 1990s APA. I could be a part of those.
Good job.
God, those guys. I love those guys.
Where can we find you on social media, and is there anything you wish to promote?
So you can find us at Grimy Scots on Twitter. You can find us. We're on Instagram too, aren't we? There, Mike.
Oh yeah, Scotland's favorite.
Scotland's favorite. Yeah, he does Instagram. I do Twitter, and we're on Facebook at the Grimy Scots. And you can reach us if you want to for bookings. GrimyScots@gmail.com.
Or hit us up through any of those avenues. You can always catch us on those things. We check them regularly and dust them off for people to email us. And I think, sadly, with the COVID crisis that's going on in the world, I think that there's not really much that we have to promote coming up, which is sad. I mean, like at this point, we were hoping to have some really, really exciting news to be coming out, but that's all kind of been put on hold for a bit.
Yes.
When things sort of thaw out, I think we'll probably get back to doing some of our intensives. We run a weekend intensive course to teach people who the acting for the pro wrestler and pro wrestling for actors. It's kind of like it's run on a weekend basis, and I would consider it more like where we take people, show them the art of professional wrestling, show them the love of it, the theatricality of it, and by the end of the 2 days, they are wrestling in a match that they have on their own with another person that's taken this intensive. We have plans to open it up and do some more runs of it when we could get more than 5 people together in a room. But we're that's I think probably next in the books is when things thaw out is we'll find some more spaces. We'll run a few more of those, which we just really adore because the people who come and take them are not only 100% in the process and love the art and the sport of it, but they are so hungry just to have fun. And that's what this whole thing is. It's all fun. And if you twist it out of there and get all bent out of shape, then you're doing it wrong. Because, and I'll sorry, Joe, to kind of go on this and kill anything, but nothing bothers me more in the professional wrestling community than somebody who's is sexist, racist, or bigoted in any way. Because, again, let's go back to The Undertaker. You can buy a dead man literally shooting lightning out of your hands, but if somebody comes in and wants to be called a certain name or wants to go by a certain pronoun and you go, well, I can't buy that. Oh no, you buy the lightning guy. Sorry, that's you buy 100%. But I'm going to go as a female, or a female wrestler is going to wrestle a dude. That ain't going to happen. That dude would kill that dude. We're wrestling. A guy shoots lightning out of his hands. All right. Mae Young gave birth to a hand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Come on. These things happen. And we all bought them and enjoyed it because of that. Don't get all bent out of shape about that guy. Just sit back and enjoy. That's not your thing. And go to the restroom, go buy yourself a hot dog. Come back when, Crush the Annihilator and Thin Skin McThinskin go wrestle. I don't care.
Thank you for being our guest this evening. We hope to see you again in the ring again when wrestling returns, whenever that might be.
A jarring transition. I'm sorry to set you up for that one.
Yeah, good old Hamish.
I think they're shooting a promo on Bigots here all of a sudden. You're like, well, and thank you for being on this show. You're like when Mike Myers was standing next to Kanye West, and Kanye starts yelling about George Bush, and Mike Myers goes, okay, and if you want to donate to Katrina help, call this number.
Well, thanks for having us. We had a blast.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from them.
Goodbye.
The music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/
13, I thought this was a good match as well. We actually talked about one of the entrants in episode 1, because I showed you a picture, because they'd just announced some of the entrants, and I said the one that looks the most interesting is the Grimy Scots. And yeah, they were actually part of a 3-way tag team, and I don't know, I don't get that, Mason. I don't understand, because you've got 2 tag teams fighting. How does the 3rd tag team ever get in?
You tag them. Didn't we watch one between Chris Benoit, Stone Cold, and Rock?
Possibly, but I just don't see why you'd ever tag in the other team.
Because you're tired.
Well, tag your own teammate.
Well, they're tired too.
Well, you're not going to win then anyway, so I don't see. But at that point, why would then the other team who's fresh ever tag you back in? So I don't quite get the logistics of those matches anyway.
Like always.
Anyway, so the Grimy Scots were one of the teams. The Cross Brothers, who had t-shirts Not the Cool Kids in School, who I really liked. And the third ones, who I don't even know, I'm going to call them the Redheads. Because they came... Oh, that was their name? Okay, they just came and insulted somebody on the front row straight away with basically like, yeah, you're stupid, you don't have red hair. That was pretty much about as far as it went. So, I think the Cross Brothers actually won that match. And actually, that was another tag team I recommended. I thought the Cross Brothers had the best wrestling skills, but I thought the Grimy Scots certainly had a lot of banter there. I know you had a flaw in their act. Did you want to tell us what wasn't so good about the Grimy Brothers?
Well, first of all, I thought it's funny that one of the bigger Grimy Scots, he held this big piece of wood, and it fell off the apron.
It fell off the apron multiple times.
Yeah, and it went to this guy in the front row, and he said, the wood likes me more than you, it shows me.
Yeah,
and then he put it back on the apron, and it fell over again.
It fell over again. Yeah, he got close to us this time, but yeah.
And,
that big club was kind of a funny thing. They didn't actually use it at any point in the match, I don't think.
Yeah, they did at the end.
After the match had finished?
Yeah, so that big guy, bigger Scottish, yeah.
I know one of them was Hamish. I did remember that.
He hit the Cross Brother in the belly because they beat him. So, yeah. And also, the lady next to me, she blew the guy a kiss, and then the guy put it under his coat.
And there was a bit of banter between those two as well. So yeah, I really like the Grimy Scots. I couldn't find out almost anything on these guys at all. They're on Facebook, but on Twitter, the only recollection I could find of them was one post which announced that they were joining, which was how I found the original picture to show you, and another one 2 years ago which spelled Grimy with an E. And that was it. So these guys don't seem to have much of a social media presence at all, which is kind of a shame. I thought they were good. I certainly hope that they're going to be back. You did shout out to them as well, and this is true, but they would know that, because somebody said, England's better, and then you shouted out as well, well, I'm from England, and they shouted back, well, you don't sound like you're from England, but you left England when you were 18 months, which is not very fair. But then at times, they didn't sound very Scottish either, and they kept dropping in and out of the accent as well, and I think I heard somebody say sounds like their accent is South Central Scotland, which was obviously a joke between two different places. So.
And yeah, at the start though, the bigger guy, he yelled at a fan, "Shut your gob."
No, he didn't. The fan yelled, "Shut your gob." He said, "Shut your mouth," and that's when the fan corrected him. It should be "Shut your gob." So yeah, they didn't even have all the English phrases there. So yeah, that was kind of, and I didn't hear him say it. Now for me, if I'm doing a fake Scottish accent, I'll be throwing in the word "wee" a few times. Do you know what "wee" is in Scottish? It means small. So it's like you're having a wee wrestling match today, laddie. It would be like a small wrestling match.
Like a,
so that was.
Yeah, I heard that phrase before. It's like a wee bit.
Yeah, a wee bit of something. That's it. You got it.
All right, match 2 is the Grimy Scots versus Max Morrison and Kevin Mears. This was a rematch from the Sweet 16 tournament. Max Morrison and Kevin Mears won in the first round. Now, at Rage in a Cage, Grimy Scots lost to the War Pigs, and Max Morrison was actually part of the War Games.
So noise pollution attacked Grimy Scots as soon as they get into the ring. And then Hamish, he gets thrown outside and then he hits the cameraman. And then I think this is the first time out of 2 times that the cameraman gets hit or drops the camera.
He dropped the camera?
No, he just kicked it. But another time the guy just dropped the camera after it got kicked. Ouch. But it didn't break. And the Grimy Scots, they win with a running neck breaker.
Now, you actually missed a bit. We bought streamers for this one.
Yeah.
We bought the flag as well. Jackson loved waving the flag. There is a few pictures posted of us on Facebook holding the flags, and the guys could see us. We were waving the flag. And we asked, can we bring the streamers? And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. We were the only people with streamers.
Yeah.
And we nailed it. I threw one, and we got a couple, and it went straight over. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Hamish's shoulder?
I sort of nailed it.
Uh-huh.
I put it like 5 inches in front of Hamish, and Hamish caught. I think,
it was.
Hamish caught it, and then he just threw it over there.
It was still good. I got one, you can see it's draped over his shoulder, and he was liking it, and it did look really good. And he's there celebrating with it. I think it looks cool when you get the streamers to land on them.
was on the roof.
But as soon as they're doing that, and he's still up there, and he's waving to the crowd in front, they got tacked from behind. So I'm like, oh no. I was like, please tell us we didn't cost them the match because of that. But anyway, they managed to incorporate it into the match, but yeah. Alright, match 7 was the Grimy Scots versus the Capital Vices. Now, for this one, we like I said, we forgot the flag. I tweeted to the Grimy Scots, I'm sorry, we forgot your flag. I know you actually tweeted back to me, but I had my phone switched off. Hey, you can borrow our flag at the intermission. So I guess that's one thing we missed at the intermission. At the very end, you went and grabbed a flag so we could wave it for them. And yeah, they came out with... Oh, that was another thing we missed at the intermission. We got a picture with Josh Fuller as well, because he was going to be their manager. So we got that one picture as well. So Josh Fuller came out, cut his promo, announced that from now on they're not going to be known as the Grimy Scots. They're going to be known as Fuller's House version 2.0. And the Grimy Scots are looking at each other and like, nah, that's not happening. But so we'll have to see whether they're going to be Fuller's House version 2.0 or not. But they didn't seem to like that. And yeah, they had the open challenge. And yeah, Capital Vices came out, who were Sin and Money. All right, talk to us about this match.
So Money Green, he climbs on like the post to hold the build, like the structural, like that part. And then he dives. He does like the Kofi Kingston trust fall off it.
He did, yeah. I thought he was gonna do like a flip or something.
Exactly.
But yeah.
I thought he was gonna like turn around and like.
Yeah, no, just fell straight down and.
Or like what Charlotte does. Then Money Green and Sin win with the power bomb like off the top
That's
rope.
it.
Yeah,
I knew as soon as you went to that for your first
short.
moment, and as soon as you went to that first one, I'm like, oh gosh, we're in trouble here. Even though I had plenty of moments from pictures where I could see that the Grimy Scots were dominating, and they had them 2-on-1 battle in the corner of the ring, and one would hold one, and then the other one would run into him and things like that.
Josh Fuller was like crying after the match.
Josh Fuller was crying. Josh Fuller's got some great experience.